So moving on to our next speaker of the day, we've got two more sessions left, and I want to introduce Jazmin Batisti. Jazmin is design team lead at Verve Search, where she's been working for over 4 years. In her time at Verve Search, she's worked on over 70 campaigns that have been featured in several top-tier publications. And this is a really exciting session, a little bit different, I think, to some of the other sessions that we've had today, and also some of the sessions that we see at other events. And today, Jazmin will be sharing how we can be gamifying our digital PR campaigns. I'm really excited to see this. Thank you very much for joining us, Jazmin. And yeah, really excited to watch your session, and as I'm sure everybody else is too.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all.
So I wanted to clarify something. I'm going to be playing through some games and I'm going to show you some videos. So I made a video instead. I won't be talking live. So if there are any audio jumps, I apologize, but I hope we can enjoy the talk. So here we go. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Here we go. Before we start, I wanted to ask you to share your thoughts about my talk, or if you have any questions at all, to do it at my Twitter, which is @Batisti. I have a LinkedIn with the same username that I use, but I don't use much. So if you want to reach me right away, I think Twitter is the best way to go. Please also don't forget to use the Digital PR Summit hashtag as well. I love to hear your thoughts. So yeah, let me know what you think. I work at Verve Search. This is the agency where I've been working for almost 5 years. And we specialize in creating high-quality interactive PR campaigns, which we then outreach to journalists to get them coverage. This is the production team. We are the people who are behind the execution of these campaigns for the entire process start to finish. The creatives research and come up with the concept, the data analysts gather the data and filter it, designers make the data easy to understand and create a layout to present it, developers bring those layouts to life, and the PM makes sure all of that happens in time. I wanted to present you the team so you know what goes behind the examples that I'm about to show you. This is my first campaign. I did this in 2016, and it's an infographic showing stats about cycling in Denmark. From those times where we used to make infographics, the industry has changed a lot. We went from this to bringing together people from all over the world to create an interactive song completely controlled by the user, gathering and visualizing hundreds of thousands of data points on different topics, even mounting a camera on top of Canary Wharf to take the world's first gigapixel photograph of London. These campaigns get tons of attention, but as you can probably tell, they have a lot of moving pieces and require a lot of production time. So hopefully today, I'll be able to show you that it's not necessary to go all in to create an asset that will bring you great results. There are several types of campaigns and things you can do, but as I said before, today I'll talk to you about games. In this case, I refer to games as an interactive piece that challenges the user to complete a task. This keeps the user motivated and engaged while going through the site. To achieve this, you need to have a mission and a challenge. A mission is a task that the user needs to complete, and a challenge is the path the user takes to complete this mission. So as a typical example of a game, we have esports elites. This is a campaign we did for an online casino client where we created a different set of challenges that will compare your skills to the ones of a professional esport player. When you hit play, it shows you a set of instructions, and then when you hit start, it reinforces them by asking you to place the cursor over the circle to begin. So that's what I'm going to do, and now I have to follow it to test my eye-hand coordination. Once I finish the game, it shows you my scores against the esports elite, and then on the next level, it gets a bit harder. It tells you what to do and explains that this is to test divided attention skills. So when you start, it asks you to place the cursor over the circle again, but now while I'm following the circle, I also have to make sure that when the image on top matches the image in the middle, I hit the space bar. I think you've seen enough of how bad I am at this, so I'm just going to show you the instructions that come next, so you can see that it gets harder and harder as you approach the end. When I reach the end of the game, it shows you my results compared to the US public. This is a campaign targeted to the US, by the way, and against the esports elites. It also gives you a chance to get to know the players better, and it provides expert commentary. But not all games have to be this traditional. You can gamify anything. This is a campaign we did for a travel client in the US. It's a gamified version of the test that people applying for a US citizenship have to pass. The idea was to collect data on how badly or well US citizens would do on their own country's test. But also, the creative team found out that a think tank called the Joe Foss Institute wanted to help enact policies in 50 states to make the test part of the school curriculum. At the time, only 18 states had it, and many were considering it. In the campaign, we asked the users some questions out of the citizenship test, and using Google Analytics, we figured out how many people passed it and how different states ranked. This gave us valuable data that allowed us to outreach and get coverage in many publications such as San Francisco Gate, Houston Chronicle, and South Coast Today, amongst others. We were also able to get some UK coverage in The Guardian's international section. This is Spot the Hazard. It's a campaign we did for a car insurance company. We wanted to replicate the hazard perception test that drivers have to pass in order to get their license in the UK. Here, we challenged the user to identify a potential hazard and point it out. At the end, we showed the user how they scored and how they compared to the British public. Once again, we were able to gather the user's results and reach out to local publications, like Cambridge, Devon, and Derby. But this is not the only use you can give to games. These examples show us that you can make games about any topic, even serious ones. And you can use Google Analytics to gather user data and make your outreach more specific. You can also use games to bring attention to important topics. This is Spot Designs. We created this campaign for an online doctor services client. Skin conditions are common, but we wonder if people will be able to identify them. We made this into a game because in addition to educate the audience about these ailments, we wanted them to be able to identify them by the time they reach the end of their mission. This is why we showed them a picture and we challenged them to identify the condition. And after they chose an option, we showed them if they were correct or not and explained a bit more about it. I'm going back to the splash here because I wanted to highlight the fact that we also offer an option to explore the statistics. Because we consider it an important part of the site, we also included a call to action at the end of the game. This section goes into detail about the skin conditions and other interesting facts about them, such as why they are so hard to identify. This is the information that we would use for outreach, and we could have easily made this into a data campaign where the user could scroll through the facts. But by making the user analyze the images in order to answer the question, we're helping them memorize these in a more efficient way. This guarantees that if faced with them in real life, they'll be able to identify them better. Games can help us educate the user by presenting the information in a more interactive way. This is Understanding Dementia. For this campaign, we paired with an expert in the field to help the user experience and understand the frustrations and emotions of a person living with dementia. To achieve it, we created a series of challenges that were impossible to win to generate a frustrating experience. So as you can see, it's asking me to click on the letter A on the image below. But when I hit it, it just disappears and goes into another place. And no matter how many times I try, I cannot make it work. After the user gets frustrated, they can see the explanation and learn why this is happening. All these puzzles are meant to confuse the user. As you can see, there is no way I can get it right, no matter how many times I try. But then we can see why. In the words of Professor June Andrews, the dementia expert we collaborated with for this project, a guaranteed failed puzzle will likely cause you to feel annoyed, angry, dismissive, paranoid, anxious, irritated, and depressed. And these are all feelings that make life harder for a person with dementia. This proves that games can bring awareness about important causes that would otherwise be difficult to explain through text. By actually showing the user how people with dementia feels, we can recreate the experience and virtually put the users in their shoes. Games can also be evergreen. This is Can You Spot It? In this game, we ask the user to identify a hidden object amongst other objects. In this case, a caterpillar hidden amongst sushi. I'll let you have a look to see if you can spot it. For the original piece, we did 5 images that got a lot of coverage, but journalists kept asking for more. Apparently, these puzzles are very popular with the readers, and because they force the user to stay on their article looking for the object, it also helps journalists hit their targets. This is the answer, by the way, in case you were wondering. So as I was saying, because we saw there was a demand, we created seasonal assets to link back to the original piece, securing us coverage throughout the year. This is how we came up with an Easter piece, a Halloween one, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. At the end of the game, we also give the user the option to see how their answers compare to the British public. But when they click it, they're prompted to complete a small survey stating their age, gender, and country of residence. This allowed us to get more specific coverage according to the demographic of our users, such as this one that compares male and female results, and this one, where they also compare genders but also age. This shows that you can prolong the longevity of a game by creating additional assets, and you can outreach to a wider array of publications by asking the users about their demographics and analyzing the data. Now that I've shown you how games can benefit your outreach, I want to show you some elements that you should include in your designs to make the layouts as efficient as possible. You don't have to include all of them in all your campaigns, but keep this in mind when you're prototyping. For this, I'll use Can You Spot It as our example. Make the splash page attractive. Nobody wants to play a game that looks boring. In this case, we show the user an animated preview of the challenges, but you can also use colors, icons, or pictures to achieve this. Include an instructions page. After the call to action, create a page to make sure the user understands the dynamic of the game and how to navigate it. Make sure the interface looks good. A colorful splash guarantees that the user will click the call to action and play the game. An eye-catching layout throughout will convince the user to stay until the end. Include a timer. Implementing a time limit keeps the game dynamic. Users that are kept on their toes are more likely to perform all of the challenges. Show clear indicators. It would be very frustrating for a person who thought they found the item to click on the wrong part of the image and not get any indications. You should not only show a result when the user is correct, you should also indicate when the user is not. Gather additional data. Gather additional data will help you find more angles and outreach to more specific publications. If possible, when showing the user their results, show them their stats compared to other users. This will encourage them to share their results on their social media and challenge their followers. For this, make sure you include prominent sharing buttons at the end of the piece. Show the user the correct answers to avoid frustration. If you'd like to give the user the option to play the game again, you can hide this behind a button so you don't spoil the game for them. And finally, test, and then test some more. It's crucial that before launching the game, you test it with people who have never seen it to make sure it's not too hard or not too easy. If you can't hire people for user testing, you can show it to your colleagues or even your friends and family. You need a good mix of difficulties to keep them interested. This is all I have for today. I hope this will encourage you to consider games for your next round of ideation. If you have any questions, you can reach me on Twitter while I'll upload my presentation so you can have a closer look. Thank you for joining my talk today. I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay. That was really great, Jazmin. Thank you for thank you for taking the time to put that together. And yeah, we've already got some really great questions coming in. So where should we start? And the first one that we've had come in is: do you find games work for European markets, such as Germany or France, for example?
Yes, they do. In Germany, I think that they like more serious content, but I can't remember any games right now that we've done for those markets, but I'm pretty sure that like we do this quite often, so I'm pretty sure they will work. I can find some examples and share them afterwards. Yeah.
That would be great. That would be great. And I think then the other main question we've had come in is: how do you get people to use the game so you can get the data that actually gets the coverage, as an example in the citizenship test?
Well, that's the key thing, is to make it attractive, you know, and have a nice angle when you outreach it, just show. But I feel when you challenge them, I think that's the best way, when they feel challenged. So that's why I was mentioning like adding a timer and things like that, because it's how can you do this, you know, and people want to prove that they can. So I feel that's the best way.
Of course, absolutely. And then in terms of actually pitching it out initially, before you've had sort of many eyeballs on the content from a journalist and coverage perspective, are you then running surveys to get people to actually play the game to collect data? or are you pitching it out initially and then seeding it out again once you've got data?
Yes, it depends, but sometimes I feel usually we complement the survey as well, because that will
Fantastic.
be the data right away, right? You don't have to wait.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, so you have angles before you launch.
Yeah, fantastic, which I think is key. And then another question that's just come in is, how do you find pitching games out to journalists different to gaining coverage and links for other stories? Sort of what's, I think the main question there is sort of what's the hook, and how is that hook, and how is it positioned differently to another story?
That's a great question, but I think my outreach colleagues might be able to answer better. So again, I can publish that on Twitter or ask them to answer if you can give me your.
Of course, yeah. And hopefully hopefully the lady who asked that will be able to turn to Twitter and hopefully connect with you on Twitter, and hopefully you can give a few more answers over there.
Yeah, exactly, yes.
Fantastic. And then the one that I'm asking everybody, Jazmin, is what's your favorite campaign that you've ever worked on, and why is that the case?
So I've been thinking about this, and I think my favorite campaign that I've worked on is one that is called What Would You Tell Your Teenage Self, where we compiled a series of advice that famous people would give to their teenage selves. And I like it because it's quite compelling, it's nice, it's heartwarming, but it's also a good opportunity for me to do some illustration work. So I had to do this typography poster. So I enjoyed it in both ways, right? I got to see all of these people's advice, but I also got to illustrate a little bit. So it was perfect.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much, Jazmin. Thank you for sharing what was a fantastic talk, something a little bit different to a lot of the talks, focusing on gamification rather than sort of largely data-driven stories and research. And yeah, really, really great session. Thank you very much for your time. And yeah, big thank you from us.
Thank you again for having me.
No problem.